Welcome to Sew Unmasked. On today's episode, we are going to return to the project for my friend Elena. The Corgi dress made from the McCall's pattern, made famous by the Stitchery and Charlie Nebbe. Last time, or one of the previous episodes I posted, I talked about how Elena had tried on the red dress that was the test or the mock-up, and we found that for the fabric, this really stretchy fabric, it actually fit her fairly well. It was a little tight, but we were afraid that if we used it in the slightly less stretchy knit, it would be too small. So I have gone back, I retraced the pattern in a larger size, and I am at the stage where I need to iron the fabric. I already washed it, but I hadn't ironed it. So I'm going to iron the fabric, then cut it out, and hopefully I have learned enough from the first round with the mock-up that I can do the second one fairly smoothly, if not quickly. And for those of you who are worried about the dragon, I have some things in my mind working on that dragon, and it has not defeated me yet. Temporarily sidetracked. The slaying of the dragon was the side quest. And now we're back to the main quest, and we will turn to the side quest when we have finished the main quest. And now to iron. Okay, I have ironed the fabric, and that was a bit more of a hassle than I was expecting. But it is a knit, and so the edges were rolling up on me. And so I went along, I tried pressing them out with the iron and the steam. That didn't seem to help much. So then I took some spray starch and I spray starched the edges to smooth them out. Unfortunately, when I did that, that also meant that I kind of stretched the edges out unintentionally. But I don't think it'll be a problem because very little of the pattern is going to fall along the edge of the fabric. I also laid out the fabric, and as you can see, I've laid it all the way across the desk, the adjustable height desk that I have. I have it across all of my cutting table, which is, I don't know, between 55 and 60 inches long. And then I also have my extra wide ironing board, and there is still a little bit of an overlap here. So I am, turn that timer off. Okay. My plan and the original plan with Elena was to do view E of the dress, and view E of the dress is, I'll walk over here and you can see, is the longer version with the cap sleeves. Now, the problem is that when I lay out the fabric is not quite long enough to be able to fit the pattern pieces to the full length. So I'm going to have to take some off of the length. And I think what I'll probably do, and I've laid the two side panel pieces together and the two front panel pieces together, or front and back panel pieces together. And what I'm gonna do is I think I am gonna take 2.5 inches, maybe, let's see, 2.5 inches. Yeah, maybe 2.5 inches off of each of those at the bottom to bring the hem up a little bit. But I think that if I do that, I will be able to get all of the pieces on the fabric. I mean, it's a very tight tolerance on there, or tight tolerance, is that the word that I'm thinking of? I don't know, maybe not. Let's say it's very close. It's a very, very close to being enough fabric, but because of the width of the side panels, when you take it all the way down to the longest length, that really cuts into the ability to use, not the ability to use, but it cuts into the length that I will be able to get the dress at, because this is so wide. If it had been narrower, then I could have gotten the full length, but I don't want to take any of the width out because I'm not sure what that would do to the look of the garment. So next step is I'm going to take a seam gauge. I'm going to mark the curve here for this piece and this piece, and I'm going to take it down by 2.5 inches. And once I have done that, I will then cut it out and start sewing. Okay, I have marked the shortening that I want to do on the paper patterns, but I decided I didn't want to cut those there because it may be that if Elena likes the pattern well enough and she wants another dress out of it, but she wants a longer dress, then I don't have to again trace the paper or trace the pattern out again to get it longer. So what I'm doing is I'm just punching holes in the marks that I put in for the shortened line with my little handy dandy hole punch. And then what I'll do is I'll just mark those holes as I'm tracing the pattern so that I can shorten it without altering the pattern itself. I thought I was having a good day as far as hair goes, but no, I'm not so sure. Oh well. Okay, I have punched the holes in the pattern where I want to shorten it. And instead of just folding it over, which it's kind of hard to do because there is a curve to this, I just kind of did the first few inches on either end so I can get an idea of how far it's going to extend from side to side, and then kind of guesstimate the middle there. I am going to lay this out with the pattern weights to begin with for the first few pieces. As you can see, this is, okay, there we go. Long pieces of fabric that I'm working with here. So I will pattern weight it down, make sure it's gonna fit okay, and then I'll pin it and cut it. I figured out very quickly that just pattern weighting was not going to do it because the length of the fabric is longer than I have on my table. So I will actually need to fold some things up to make sure it's all going to fit. So I did go ahead and pin these first two down. Now I will roll it up and see if there's enough to get the full length or if I'm going to have to shorten the pattern a wee bit more. Wow. That is not nearly enough shortening. So we can see how much overlap there is here. So I can get the side panels on there at the full length, but I cannot get, as you can see, the front panels and back panels on. There's just way not enough fabric for that. Now that I think about it, we may have only thought we were going to be making a shirt out of this when we got it. I can't remember, but I will have to consult Elena to see how much shorter she is okay going on the dress because there's not enough of this fabric to do the full length T-length dress that she was looking at. So I will text her, find out what she wants to do, and then figure it out. Time will pass. Time has passed, but I have talked to Elena and we are going to cut the dress more like a tunic length because that's actually what we thought. Remembering now back to our trip and buying the fabric, the Corgi fabric was actually going to be test fabric for a different dress and not a dress in itself. We were gonna try it as a dress, but there wasn't quite enough fabric left on the bolt. So what we're gonna do is I am going to mark the pattern at the shortest dress length that's shown on the pattern front. And then I'm gonna see if I can fit that on there. Hopefully I can. And then she could decide how much shorter she wants it or if she likes it at that length to wear with leggings. And if I can't get the shortest dress length out of there, then I will just keep shortening it until I can get a full shirt out of it, and hopefully it will be long enough for her to wear with leggings. And I'm going to do what I was doing earlier, and I will punch holes in the pattern along the shortened skirt line so that I don't actually have to cut the pattern tracing apart and do that all again. Okay, more time will pass. I am so proud of myself. I figured out that if I slid my big old cutting mat down and onto the table, about this much, it wouldn't sag, and I could get all of the fabric on a flat surface. Now, there's not much room on the ends, but it is all in one piece, will make it much easier for me to figure out and lay out the pieces to know where they should go and if it's going to need any more shortening. Hooray! Okay, I have laid things out here according to the way it looks in the pattern guide, and you can see that I've kind of folded things up. I didn't have to pin it down to place it out and be able to see that yes, I can get the short dress in there, and actually I would have a little extra left over. Not sure what to do with it, but I have figured out that because of the way the side panels flare out, that it's really going to be tough. I can't really get anything extra on the length easily. So I'm just going to go ahead and, like I said, I am going to cut the shorter skirt out, and we'll sew it up, and then we will let Elena decide how much she wants it hemmed. So if she actually likes it as a dress, or if she would like it cut a little bit shorter so that it could be a tunic to wear with leggings. Okay, now time to pin this monster down. Well, it turns out that things went more smoothly than I expected after I had kind of discovered this shared more in common with the properties of the red stretchy knit than the knit that I had made my dress out of. So I've got the front panels and the back panels attached. So now I just need to sew up the side seams, add the collar and the sleeves, or sleeves and then the collar. And then I will meet with Elena and have her try it on so we can see about the hem. Now, one thing that I realized as I was sort of cleaning up my mess and folding up the bits and pieces is that this doesn't have any pockets. And I suppose I could try to add some on the sides before I sew it up, but I'm not sure where to put them height-wise because, well, yeah, I've never tried to add pockets to a pattern that didn't have pockets, or at least not yet. Maybe one day, but not feeling it today. So what I was thinking I might do is Elena hand sews, and so I thought I could, on my machine, I could stitch her some patch pockets. So finish the edges under and everything with the machine. And then she could hand sew the patch pockets wherever she felt comfortable with them on the dress. The other idea that I had was, because there is so much of this, I could actually make a fabric belt out of this and do like a little side pouch pocket purse kind of thing. And that way she wouldn't have to attach anything to the dress. And if she really liked the belt and the little patch pocket, then, or the little purse pocket on the belt, then she could wear it with other things as like a cute little accessory. So I will text her, see where she thinks, and let you know what happens. Thanks. Time will pass. I have heard from Elena, and she opted to just say, sew it the way it is. Don't worry about the pockets. So I'm not going to worry about the pockets. I am, however, going to send all of the scraps with her in case she wants to do something with that. She mentioned she might try to put in pockets for herself because she had been adding pockets to some of the other things she has that don't have pockets and she wished did. So that means that I am free to move on to the sleeves. And that is what I will sew next. As you can tell, I am not a professional at filming myself yet, but maybe that's good enough now. Now, this little bit is tricky because, as I mentioned earlier, this fabric has a little less body to it than might be good for sewing such a small strip of fabric. So it's not like you can start it and there's a lot to it's hard to get started because it's a small piece, and so you have to have it really close to the edge of the fabric when you're starting, and there's a chance that it will want to feed into the plate and get all knotted up, and my machine might be tempted to eat it. But there's really not a way around it. So let's see what happens. The other thing with this fabric is that when you get to the edge, you have to be careful because when you go to backstitch it, it sometimes will try to eat the fabric then too. So I'm left with a slight dilemma on at what point do I backstitch? Do I take it all the way to the edge and then try to backstitch it and risk it getting eaten by the machine? Or do I stop it a little away from where it says and then just know that it's not going to be completely sewn all the way, so I'll have to take that into account when I'm turning it up to hem. I am getting really tired of digging fabric out of the machine, so I'm going to stop a little bit sooner than I would if this were cotton. I mean, this is cotton, well, polycotton. Stop sooner than I would if it were a woven fabric, just because, like I said, I am so over trying to get fabric out of the plate. So I'm going to call it good there. I'm going to backstitch. Okay. No fabric eaten. So I'm going to go ahead and sew the other sleeve closed, and then comes the fun part of trying to actually fit this raglan sleeve into the body of the dress, which is where, well, let's just say things get even dicier than the curved seams on the bodice of the dress. Okay, the sleeves are finished. I put a little hem on it. They say in the pattern instructions basically to roll the hem over. So instead of just turning it up once, you turn it up twice and then sew it down. But there's something about that in this knit that makes it look a little too bulky, I think. And so I have gone ahead and I've just, stitched the one row. And the reason I chose to do that and not fancy finish the edges is because it just looks better, and I think it helps keep a little bit more of the stretch than if you double fold it. And since it's knit, it's not really in that much danger of fraying. So I'm just going to go ahead and sew it the once. So the next step is I am going to iron the hem down, and then I'm going to start pinning the sleeves to the dress. Time has passed, and after some very careful pinning to put the sleeve in the bodice, I am now going to try to sew it in. Yeah, that's next. Woohoo! Sleeves are in. So that means the last thing that I need to do is stay stitch around the neck, and then what I consider to be the most tricky part of tricky pattern is adding in the collar itself. But hopefully I can do that without too much trouble and be done with this and go back to the dragon. Time has passed. Still the same day, but longer time lapse between getting the sleeves in and getting the collar pinned than I anticipated. Though perhaps I shouldn't have underestimated that, because I have tried to sew the neck in this, previously. Okay, so let's look at the instructions here. Okay, the instructions say, first we stitch the collar piece together, then we flip it to where the pattern or the right side is on the outside, so the inside or the wrong side is on the inside. So stitched that, then I ironed it, pinned it the way they show here. Everything seems fine, but then they show me this, and it says pin neck, band to neck edge, matching centers. Okay, stitch. Okay, stitch again 1/4 inch away in seam allowance. All right, and then trim close to stitching, press seam toward dress. Okay, I follow all that. But then they show me these pictures here, and so it looks like they have pinned the collar to the wrong side of the fabric. But if they do that, then it's going to be unfinished on the wrong side. And to me, this doesn't seem to then match this when you follow up. It seems like, yes, they put the collar inside, so it's right side to right side, and then flipped it to get it to look like this, if you look, really closely at those stitch lines. So that's what I've done. Even though, according to the pattern instructions, it looks like you pin this to the outside, I have actually pinned it to the inside so that when it flips up, or when I turn the dress right side out, then this should be right side out. Okay, now I'm gonna have to turn this inside out and see what actually happens. Yeah, okay, time will pass. Okay, I have turned it inside out the way I had it pinned. So if I do it that way, then when the collar flips up, it would be on the correct side, right? Okay, now I'm confused. Okay, so I'm going to now pin it the way they said to pin it and see what it looks like, because my brain is having trouble visualizing what it's supposed to look like based on the atrocious picture. More time will likely pass. Okay, I have decided I am just going to have to trust the process on this. So I removed the collar being pinned the way I thought it should be, because I thought they were wrong. But since I'm doing this for Elena, and I hate taking things apart, especially stitches on knits because things get stretched out, I'm going to go ahead and try as much as possible to make this and the collar pinning look as much like this as possible. I have heard that trusting the process works. But I also talked to my mom when I was trying to do the collar on the test dress for Elena. And I said, Mom, I need some help understanding this pattern. And I sent her the picture, and she was like, I'm not sure. She said, the only thing I really used patterns for was just to cut the pieces out. So that meant my mom was basically just winging it in actually assembling things. I am quite envious of her ability to do that. And I think she gets that from my grandmother, or got that from my grandmother, who, as I think I've mentioned before, was a professional seamstress. Okay, so I'm going to try to trust the process. We'll see how it goes. I can't trust the process. I can't. So I unpinned it and pinned it the way I thought it looked like they had it pinned in the pattern. And then I turned it inside out. And if I did it that way, then you would see the stay stitching, and the collar would be like wrong side out. How very, very, very frustrating. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unpin it and pin it back the way I had it and sew it that way and hope it works. Okay, so I am finished with the corgi dress. It's done. The corgi dress is finished. Let's take a look at it. I think that it looks like it's, well, kind of hard to see here, but in Valentina, as lovely as she is, isn't the right size for this dress, but I thought it was nice to put it on the Valentina instead of just throwing it on the cutting table again to show folks. So definitely did a better job this time on the front and the sides. The sleeves, I think I did a better job on the sleeves than I did with the first one, with the red one. And I finally fussed around with the collar enough to get a collar on it. However, I am not really thrilled with the neckline because it seemed like the neck band was a lot smaller than the neck hole, and so it made it really difficult to sew this fabric in smoothly because there are little gathered spots here and there. And I think that it's fine for this particular dress, or this fabric is okay. The little corgi pattern kind of breaks things up and makes it harder to see those points where there's some puckering. And what I have determined after using this pattern now for the second time is that I don't think it's going to be a good pattern for the peach fabric that Elena picked out. And the reason for that is because the peach fabric, it's probably somewhere in the stretchiness factor between, well, no, it's not as, The corgi fabric and the red fabric are both stretchier in actuality than I think the peach fabric is going to be. And because I'm having such difficulty making the collar work on this particular pattern, I don't think that I should use the gold fabric for that, or the peach fabric, because I think that every little imperfection would show. So I am going to let let Elena know that while her corgi dress is ready to go, that I probably need to, or we probably need to look at a different option pattern-wise for the peach fabric. But this is done. I can now let her know and arrange for her to try it on, and hopefully it will fit and she will like it and can enjoy the dress for what it is. And we'll go back to the drawing board on the pattern. Okay, and now I am going to leave this dress on Valentina for now and return to the dragon.